Welcome to the Develop Yourself podcast, where we teach you everything you need to land your first job as a software developer by developing yourself, developing your skills, your habits, your network, and more. I am your host, one of your hosts, Aaron Hayslip, and today it's just me. We're talking about your mindset. Now, this is not the same kind of podcast that Peter did last week. He talked about the mindset that coding gives you. Today, we're talking about the most powerful tool that you have, which is your mind. The way that you think, the things that you think about affect everything. It affects your mental health. It affects your attitude. It affects the things that you do. And during this time in your life, whenever you're learning to code and you're trying to get a job as a software engineer, or maybe you have just landed your first job, your mindset is everything. So we're going to talk through a few practical strategies that have helped me in the past adopt a better mindset. And then as you're learning to code, or perhaps you've just landed your first job as a software engineer, mastering the way that you think and your mind and your attitude is going to pay dividends. So I really believe that in the next year, there is nothing more important that you can invest in, not your skills, not your network, not even your habits, your mindset, the way that you view the world is the most important piece. So we're going to go through some super practical strategies. I've got a list here of several that I've used in the past. Several of these I still use. And by the way, this is still a battle for me. I'm always fighting the battle to stay on top of the things I think about and the way I view the world. So let's get to that. I promise you, this will be well worth the time you spend thinking through this, even though sometimes these emotional topics, like what you think about, can be difficult. It's your mindset that is the most important. So let's walk through how we can build a bulletproof mind. Okay, we're going to get practical here in a minute with a few different strategies. But first, I want to give some context for why mindset is so important to me. I think I gave this example in episode number 31, where I talked about fighting depression and how ultimately learning to code brought me out of a season of depression. And I think it comes down to learning to code gave me a new mindset. So maybe go listen to Peter's last podcast before, but not in the same way Peter talks about. For me, this was, it changed my mind about who I was. I had value to offer. Now that value that I had was always there. The ability to learn to code and then to add value to a tech startup, it was always there. It was inside of me. And this potential to do really anything is inside all of us. And that sounds kind of cheesy to say, but it's true. And what we need to do is to convince ourselves to believe that we have an important role to play in the world. And I think part of that is, if your hope is to become a software engineer, then to believe that you can do that. And not even only to believe that, but to believe 10x bigger than even that. But I admit, one thing that's been hard and I still work on now, it's probably the hardest thing I deal with day to day, is to have a big picture ambition for yourself, to have a desire or a want to do more, do bigger things, but then yet to be limited by your current reality. And I think a lot of people would refer to that as contentment. It's hard to be content. And I think that's part of the battle here with your mindset is, how do you envision yourself? So someone like you, maybe you're in a boot camp or thinking about going through a boot camp, or you're learning to code on your own or whatever. You have this desire to be a 10x engineer at a FANG company, for example. Let's say you want to be an engineer at Google, and you feel really far from that, right? How do you remain content right now with who you are, maybe the family you have, the life you've had, the gifts you've been given? How do you remain thankful for where you're at, but yet also believe that there's more for you, and how can you chase that, right? So there are a lot of practical things that you can do. Enjoying the process is one practical thing that I've learned to think through over the years, which is, okay, even if I've got an end goal, something I want to get to, if I'm not enjoying the process between here and there of getting there, then it's not going to be worth it, because I'm going to get there, and in the end, that thing isn't going to give me satisfaction. But right now, if I can enjoy the process of getting there, then it ultimately doesn't even matter if I ever get there or not, right? I won't be depressed if I don't get there. So that's kind of one of these things I've learned over the years to think through is practically speaking, enjoy the process of what you're doing. It's like working out, right? If you go to the gym every day and you're doing workouts that you hate, now obviously there's pain in working out, but there's a way to enjoy that pain. I think at one point I was doing CrossFit because, man, I just had fun. Like, I had fun with the people I was working out with. It was enjoyable. Of course, it was painful, but it was like a good kind of pain. And then at that point, it didn't matter if, I lost weight or got jacked or whatever. The thing that mattered to me then was just going, because it was fun to go to. I don't care if I ever change. I mean, I did care, but it's a secondary motive to enjoying the process. So all I have to say, this is an ongoing battle for me. Like, how do I stay content where I'm at, yet have a bigger vision for my life than even what it is right now? And I think one thing I'm reminded of often is that the person who I was 5 years ago would be stoked to be in the position that I'm in right now, all around, financially, personally, with my family, as a father, as a husband. That person would be stoked, but I'm not stoked necessarily day in and day out. So for me, I've got a few methods that I utilize to help me fight that, because I think one of the things I learned early on, probably the single most important, is that most people gravitate toward either having a scarcity mindset or an abundance mindset, right? I think pretty much everything I'm talking about right here in terms of mindset can be broken down into that scale. How scarce do you think versus how abundant do you think? Now, obviously, an example of this would be someone who's scarce thinks there's not enough. They need to squeeze every ounce out of every person they meet, out of every transaction. This is the kind of person you go to lunch with and you'll split the bill and they're complaining because, you ordered a more expensive entree. No one likes that person, by the way. Now, an abundant mindset thinker thinks there's plenty to go around. I will happily pick up the check. It doesn't matter. Like, who cares? Let's just split it down the middle, or, hey, it's on me this time. There's plenty to go around. You can take my time. I can give you all of my secrets. I can share everything I know, and it's only going to make me better. It's not going to make me worse. There's no detraction from me. That's the abundance mindset. And we all like these people, and we want to become these people because they're lighthearted, and the things that they touch turn into gold, and they believe that there is plenty more to go around. And that's probably real, right? That's probably more in line with reality rather than this scarcity mindset. And so I'm pretty much, all these strategies I'm going to go over right now are strategies that I've used or do use to try and get me into that abundance mindset. And you can see how, practically speaking, this would be detrimental to have a scarcity mindset if you're in this position of trying to learn to code and become a software engineer. Let's think about it real quick. If you think that there's never enough, that you're not good enough, how is that going to change the way that you approach things? One really important implication for this is the job search. Let's say you've just graduated from a boot camp and you feel like trash. Like, you're just like, I'm the worst developer ever. There are no jobs. Look at these layoffs. No one's going to hire me. Are you going to be bold and apply for a bunch of positions? Are you going to reach out to people that you know in your network? You're absolutely not going to do it. Like, you're just not going to do it because you believe that you don't have that value. You got this scarcity mindset that there's not enough to go around. Whereas someone with an abundance mindset would say, okay, some layoffs have happened. That's been isolated. Some of these big companies. That's true. Yet, look how many millions of developer positions there are in the world. Look how much I know already. Look how much I knew before. Look how much I know now. Overall, look at the 10-year trajectory of software development. Look at the salaries people are getting. Hey, this person got a job. I can too. There's plenty for me. That kind of mindset is going to get you into a role so much faster than someone who has a scarcity mindset. All right, so that's one example of why I think this is important for you all who are in this process of becoming a software engineer. I could probably think of 100 more examples of how having an abundance mindset is going to transform your relationships and the way you think about your money and the way you think about literally every facet of your life. So let's jump into a few of these practical strategies to change your mindset. All right, and I've got a list in front of me here. There's about 8. So I'll see how many I can get through here. And they've all worked differently for me over the years. So yeah, we'll get to those. But first, I wanted to say that one of the most powerful realizations that I had a few years ago, and this sounds really silly, but is the fact that you can control what you think about, right? In any given period of time, at any point during the day, you can change what you think about. Right now, you're thinking about my voice. But if you wanted to, you could say, let's think about a red Ferrari. And now you're thinking about a red Ferrari. And maybe that thought brings up different emotions in you that, man, I really want a red Ferrari. Will I ever be able to get one? Or I don't know. But you can control that. You can't necessarily control how you react to certain thoughts or how you feel or how you process your emotions. You can't necessarily control that. You can't just say, be happy, Aaron, be happy. Now I'm happy. You can't do that, but you can control what you think about. And what you think about obviously influences your mindset, your attitude, your emotions, etc. So this is one of the things that I've tried to really hone in on is, hey, at any given point during the day, I can think about, I can control what I think about. So one of these strategies, number one here is, and I've heard someone, I can't remember honestly who it was that came up with this idea, but they'd set different alarms for different personas throughout the day. So let me give you an example. I think this person gave the example that in the morning when they wake up, and this is true for me too, I wake up in the morning and usually about 5:45 or 6. My kids don't wake up till around 6:50. I make coffee. I read the Bible for a few minutes. And then at around 6:30, 6:40, I start making my kids breakfast. My wife, she's been teaching 3rd grade in this last season, so she's usually out the door pretty early. I'm making breakfast for the kids and taking them to school. And so from about 5:45 to 6:30-ish, I don't have to be anybody, right? I can just be me. Like my role is to drink coffee, is to get my mindset right, etc. But from about 6:30 to 7:30, like all hell breaks loose in my home because I'm trying to get my kids ready to go to school. And who I am in that moment is a dad. So who do I need to be in that moment? Do I need to be a good software engineer? Do I need to be a good entrepreneur, a good leader? I don't. In fact, I need to be really bad at those things so that I can be really good at being a dad. So the example I think this person gave for alarms is he literally has an alarm on his phone. So for me, it would be 6:30, this alarm goes off and it says world's best dad. Right now it's time to be the best dad, to be gentle, to be slow to anger, to help my kids get the food that they need, to help them get their socks, even though that they don't want to put their underwear on, they don't want to brush their teeth. One kid, inevitably he's pooping. I don't know why. Like during the most chaotic part of the day, he decides to take a 15-minute poop, but that happens a lot of times. And I can either be a jerk and yell and be like, come on, Jeremiah, why are we pooping right now? Which, to be honest, I often do. But if I can remind myself to think, to get in this mindset of right now, your job isn't to be rushed or hurried or organized. Your work will be there whenever you're done getting your kids to school. Your job is to be a great dad, right? So that's that idea. And then after I drop the kids off, the alarm would say world's best, whatever job you have. And, maybe it's entrepreneur, maybe a software engineer. And for those hours, right, the kids are at school. So obviously, am I going to be a good dad? Absolutely not. I don't have to be. I'm not even around them, right? So to be a great entrepreneur or software engineer or whatever it is, I have to purposefully ignore my kids. I cannot necessarily, now you can obviously argue and say, well, aren't you motivated to work hard for your kids so you can provide? Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I literally can't use my brain power on thinking about my kids because I'm here at work. I need to be doing my work. I need to do my job well. So that alarm would go off for then. And then same thing, it would transform me again when in the car home. If I get home and I'm like, God, what a crappy day. People were being idiots and I'm just taking that out on my wife and kids. That's not going to go well. So I need that alarm to go off again. And maybe there's even one for going to the gym. If I go to the gym and I'm being a software engineer, I'm just thinking about code or work or the stock market or whatever while I'm trying to get a workout in, that won't produce a very good workout. I'm at the gym, I need to think about, man, I need to be like a beast, a bodybuilder or something, some other persona that I am. So that's the first strategy, is set alarms for different personas. And I don't actually set alarms anymore, but I do think about this, that, all right, I'm in the car home. This is a moment of transition where I can need to leave work and I need to get into the mindset that right now I'm a dad again. And I can't be thinking about work, can't be worried about it. I can't do anything about it anyway. I've predetermined that I will not do anything about it right now. My job right now is to get home, help with dinner, help with the kids, make sure that together my wife and I can, have a smooth evening if possible. Okay, so that's the first one. I've got a few here that I would lump together to say that these are kind of like morning type, I guess you could say, rituals or strategies. I find that if I can start my morning off right, usually I can start my day off, or I guess I should say, usually my day will go better. If I can start my morning off right, my day will usually go better. So one of the things that I've adopted recently is called morning formula. And though I didn't make this, I've really transformed it and made it my own. This comes from a guy named Taylor Welch. If you look him up online, I'm not endorsing him, nor do I agree with everything he says, but I thought this was a pretty cool idea. I've got, it's a series of like 7 different, I guess you could say it's a note, and it's got 7 steps. And in those 7 steps, I review different thoughts that I have about myself and who I am and what I want to do and be about. So I'm going to go through each of those right now. So this might take a couple minutes, but you've got time. Just 2x the podcast. Come on. All right. So morning formula. Number 1, I look at affirmations / truths I believe. And truth be told, I'm always working on this one, but I'm thinking here, what are things that are true that I need to believe today? And it might be tempting to not believe these things about myself or my world, right? And so one thing that I often get scared of is, man, will I fail? And I bought this really expensive house last year at the top of the market. That's true. What if I fail? Am I going to have to go bankrupt or something? And even though I'm 100 miles away from that, I have to remember some true things about who I am. All right. So that's kind of one of the areas I think through is affirmations. One of these is I can only take care of what's in front of me. Right now, I have been given these things. The rest, I need to trust that, for me, that God will take care of them because they're literally outside of my control. I can't change the market, right? I've prepared as much as possible. I've got a decent emergency fund, etc. But I can't change the housing market or inflation or interest rates or any of that. So that's one thing that I just remind myself of is I can't do that. So there's quite a bit here for me. That's number 1, affirmations, truth. Number 2, I go through what's called a vision map. And I just have a list of identities, all right, of who I am. And I just talk through that. And it's kind of embarrassing to say it because, and by the way, yours should be embarrassing, right? It's embarrassing because you're giving a picture of yourself that you probably don't believe about yourself and that others may not believe about you either, right? And so that's why it's embarrassing. So here's mine. I walk through, I say, Aaron is a follower of Jesus, a husband, a father, a friend, an elder, an entrepreneur, an investor, a whole company owner, a writer, speaker, thought leader, mentor, advisor. And I just kind of go through other things about myself, what my life to be. This is a vision for who I am and what people would say about me, right? Now, obviously, most of those things are not things that people are saying about me right now, but I want to believe that that's who I can be. And that's why I walk through that. I want to believe that's who I am. And I want to treat the day as if that's who I am. So that's the vision map. Number 3 here is a list of rules, habits, and commitments. So regardless of the season, right? These are, for me, it's a list of 13 unbreakable contracts I have with myself. These are just things that I'm committed to day in and day out. And I'm going to kind of walk through them real quick with you. Number 1 is I get up early and I read the Bible. 5 days a week, I wake up between 5 and 6, read the Bible, and do morning form. This is morning forms, right? That's one of my commitments. Number 2, what I eat physically. 6 days a week, I do intermittent fasting. If I'm in a cut, I eat at a deficit. I get 1 pound or 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And 1 day a week, I just don't care. I eat whatever I want, right? So over the long run, this is what I want to eat physically. Number 3, what I eat mentally. And this is, for me, I just want to make sure that my mind is guarded from garbage. And so I avoid the news. I avoid NPR in the car. I avoid social media on my phone. I avoid YouTube. If I want to be entertained, I'll watch something with my wife or read a good book, or the occasional podcast. If I want education, I'll listen to podcasts or read nonfiction books or listen to audiobooks. That's what I eat mentally. I don't want to listen to or let garbage in my mind. Number 4, workout. 4 to 5 days a week, I work out, either lifting, running, mountain biking, Peloton, whatever. This is just who I am. Number 5, end-of-day gratitude. I don't really practice this, to be honest, but ideally I would. At the end of each day, Sarah and I talk about what we're thankful for and what we're thankful for as it relates to what we've been given. Number 6, I'm present with my kids. If I'm with my kids, I'm not looking at my phone. I'm fully present with them. Number 7, focus at work. When I'm at work, I only work with focus. If I need a mental break, I'll take a short walk or work out. I've constrained my time so that I don't have the option to not be focused at work. I use Pomodoros whenever possible. Number 8, regular planning. I practice weekly, daily, quarterly, or annual planning to ensure that I'm spending my time wisely. Number 9, no work at home, if at all possible. I never bring work home. If I do, I have to ask myself, are you losing focus at work? I shouldn't even think about work at home as to be fully present. No email or Slack on my phone. I've violated that recently, to be honest. So that's one I need to work on. Number 10, dates with Sarah, who's my wife. Every week I do a date with Sarah that I plan. Number 11, dates with the kids. Every quarter, Sarah and I each have a one-on-one day with each kid. Number 12, devotionals with a family. As a family, we weekly read the Bible and pray together. And 13, committed to community. We're committed to community with whom we regularly eat with, we pray with, we together share our lives. I have men in my life whom I hide nothing from, including internet history and tax returns. I do an annual trip with close friends and ensure that Sarah does the same. We make life-altering decisions based off community. So those are my 13 principles. And obviously, I don't read every one of these word for word every morning, but I just skim them to make sure that I'm going through my principles. All right, this is long, but this is, again, morning formula. We're on number 3. We're about to get to number 4. All right, I'm going to skim through these. I'm not going to read the details, but number 4 is principles. These are just principles that I have. I am never moved, firmly planting, not wanting, without lack, right? I want to be that. So that's one of my principles is I'm firmly planting, I'm without lack. The second one is focus and war against distraction. Number 3 is consistency is better than results. And if you say being consistent is better than having good results, then your results are going to be inevitable. The next one is that I'm available. Next one is that I'm present. The next one is that money is time frozen, right? So this is an important one for me, by the way, which is this idea that like getting money is only valuable, or the most valuable way to think about money is that it can buy you time, right? If I pay someone to clean my house, I don't have to clean my house. I can play with my kids instead. The next one is generous. I want to be generous. Next one is abundance mindset. Obviously, we've talked about that already. And the next one is take risks. I want to be a risk taker. All right, number 5 is theater of mind. And I won't go through this one, but basically what theater of mind is picture like your perfect day. What does it look like? And it's kind of just getting into that vision of, man, this is what it would look like if today went really well, or this is the kind of day that I am working toward. Number 6, and these are 2 things I added. I added my long-term goals, and I've got a list, and I use this in Notion, by the way, of multi-year goals. And these are goals that I'm not going to accomplish right now this year, but over the next few years, I hope to achieve these goals. And again, this is just getting me into the mindset of, man, I can dream big. I can think big. These are the things I want. And I even have a list here of the years 2023 all the way through when my kids are all going to be out of school. So at the top of my multi-year goals list, I want to envision how old will I be and how old will all of my kids be. So for example, the year that all of my kids are out of the house is the year 2036. I'll be 47. My kids will be 18, 20, and 22. So I'm just kind of thinking about, hey, this is how much time you've got. You don't have a ton of time, but let's get into these. And I'll just give you a few ideas on this multi-year goal list. I take 2 months off every year, right? That's a goal of mine. I want to take 2 months off every single year. One other one on here is I want to spend 4 to 6 months in Europe as a family and not work. In retirement, I want to have a house somewhere in a walkable city where, when this is without the kids, let's live somewhere like downtown. When my kids are out of the house, I want to visit them every quarter. If they're not, in state or my city, I'm going to visit them every quarter. I don't care if I bug them. Take the family diving, take the family skiing. Let's see, what's another one of these that's kind of fun? Become more generous. I want to get a giving debit card. I have a friend who does this. He has a debit card, and on his debit card, the whole bank account is just money that he puts in there every month to be generous with. So if he's out and he sees somebody he knows, he can just be like, hey, can we pay for their meal over here? Here's my card. And it's just random generosity. And I just love that. It's such an abundance mindset. Okay, so that's kind of the multi-year goals. And then finally, and this is another one of the strategies, I look at my mantras. And what are mantras? And for me, again, I just totally made this up. But mantras are thoughts that you want to have regularly, that you want to review. And every once in a while, for me, I don't know about you, but someone will say something and it will make me have a thought, and that thought will completely reframe my life, right? And so let me see if I can give you an example of this. Here we go. Here's one. You don't need new ideas. You just need to better execute the ideas you're already working on, right? I saw someone post this on Twitter, and it was such a shift for me of like, man, I am always thinking of new ideas. What's the next big thing? And I always feel there's like this pressure that I need to do something new or more or better. And this made me think, maybe I don't. Maybe I can just execute better. What if I just did the best version of what I'm doing right now? Would that be life-changing enough for me? And so what I've done is I've got this collection of mantras, and I think right here I've got about 10 or 15 of them, and I only put 3 of them at the top at any given time. So I just pick 3, and I say, okay, in this season, these are the 3 that I need. And that was one. Here's another one I've got that's similar. It's stop reevaluating decisions you've already made and execute. That's kind of like the same thing. And then the other one is faithfulness to what's in front of you is all that is required in this season. If you can tell by reading these, and this is funny because I've never read these out loud to somebody like I am right now on the podcast, but this is evidence that I am always thinking about different things and reevaluating my life and my decisions. And I'm trying to tell myself every day that you don't need to do that. And going through these mantras is kind of a way for me to remind myself that I really don't have to do that. And it 100% helps. It makes me in a new mindset where I don't have to worry about everything else. I just have to do the job I've been given right now. Okay, so that covers actually most of my strategies because inside Morning Formula, I've incorporated the mantras, I've incorporated the multi-year goals. One thing that I've been doing lately is rating myself each day, basically rating my mindset and actively thinking through like how good is my mindset. So I've got a scale here, 0 to 5, 0 being my mindset was total garbage. I thought of myself as a POS. I thought my life was over. I was depressed. 5 is, man, I'm on top of the world. Like, can it get any better? No, it cannot. This is the best of the best. Like, let's bring out the champagne. Like, let's just take a bath in it, right? That is number 5 for me. And so every day I try to rate myself and think through what I am. And does a couple of things. One, this was an idea from a friend of mine who just said, hey, normally my days are pretty good. When I have a bad day, I tend to think that all my days are bad, but it's not true. So if I start taking a collection of my days and just give myself a rating of like 0 scarce, 5 abundance, and then over time I can see, hey, most of my days are like a 3 or 4, then I can realize that the days I have a crap day, man, it's okay, because tomorrow is probably going to be a 3 or a 4, because it usually is. Or it's a way to tell you that, man, you really need to work on your mindset, because every day you're at a 1 or a 2 or a 0 or something like that. But it's helped me think through that, because it's helped me remind myself that I need to actively work on this. You're not just born, and some people are. I think there's brain chemistry things, but again, I'm not licensed to talk about any of this, so don't hold me to it. But you're not born with these things, and you're not just the way you are. Like, in other words, you can change your mindset. You can change how you view the world. You can become an optimist. And so that reminds me of that. Like, okay, if I had a crappy day, remember, you're tracking this. You can do things to change this. Or a couple other things that I do to help me with my mindset is just being organized, to be honest, like having annual goals, quarterly reviews, daily goals, weekly kind of tasks, all those things. I'm not going to talk about that here. I've talked about it at length before in some of the goal setting podcasts, but those help me because they remind me that I'm on track towards something. And then maybe the last thing I'll mention, which is probably more related to rating myself, is having an accountability partner. So I've got a good friend. He's been on the podcast before, Scott Frazier. Him and I, every day we send each other just like some information about ourselves, right? Whatever we're tracking, however we're tracking goals in that season. And what we do is we narrow those down to daily commitments, and we just send each other a summary of like, hey, how'd you do with your daily commitments? And this helps us be accountable. And the mindset rating thing is one of those that I've got in there. And Scott can just track how my mindset's going, and we can sit down and talk about it. And if it's not going well, he can kind of provide some guidance just as a friend for me on that, and me for him as well. So this is much easier to do when you do it with somebody else. All right, those are all of my strategies. This is a reminder to you that no matter where you're at, the story isn't over. You can reframe where you're at. You think you are at the bottom, and if you are, then the shift here is that there's nowhere to go but up. And if you think that there is no future for you, you're completely wrong, and you need to reframe it. That every story that ends in success has a moment or moments like this. So hopefully you can adopt some of these strategies and every day remind yourself of who you're going to be, but yet also be content with where you're at. Enjoy the process. And by the way, like if you hate coding, then jump on a different train, right? You don't have to do this. So enjoy the process, get your mindset right. Remember that you can control what you think about, and over time, controlling what you think about will evolve your attitude, your mindset, your outlook, and hopefully you can be an abundance thinker. I'm working on it too. I don't have all the answers. These are just ways that I am, I would say working on it, but maybe coping is a better word for it. These are the ways I'm coping with the world right now. All right, that does it for today's episode of the Develop Yourself podcast. To learn more about our online code school, Parsity, visit parsity.io. That's our website. We have always got new cohorts of Dev 30, which is our 30-day crash course on JavaScript. It's always happening. There's always new ones coming up. So check out dev30.xyz to learn more and to jump into the next cohort. Keep sending me your kind LinkedIn messages. I've been getting a lot lately on how the podcast has been helpful for you, and I just really appreciate those messages. I try to respond to all of them. So thankful to you all for being faithful listeners, and we'll talk to you next week.